Dante's Divine Comedy, Inferno, Canto the Fourth.
I think Dante fainted after they were headed across the river with Karen.
He is awoken now by a flash of thunder. Him and Virgil are currently next to a giant abyss, and from this abyss is emanating this loud, thunderous cry of like wailing and pain and torment.
A scream hole, you're saying?
Yeah, scream hole.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
That's the technical term. The scream hole is so dark that he can't see the bottom, and he can't even see any of the features of the hole looking into it.
A bottomless scream hole.
Virgil says to Dante, all right, let's go, follow me. But when Dante looks over, Virgil is pale, and Dante starts to freak out a little bit. He's like, how are we gonna go down there if you're scared of this place? Virgil reassures him that it actually isn't fear that's making him pale, but it's pity for the pain of those below. So he says, let's go down to the first layer, and they head down to the first layer. This is Limbo. One thing he notices immediately is there's actually no wailing. There's just a lot of sighing. There's so much of it, it's kind of loud.
Like a white noise kind of thing?
Yeah, it's almost like there's like a sea of sighing just kind of like rolling around.
It's bizarre.
Virgil says, the people here are good people. However, their merits don't save them. And because they were born before Christ, they aren't able to fully worship God. And that includes me. The people here are lost from God's grace completely. However, they are spared at least one aspect of the greater punishment of hell. Dante is kind of sad as he's looking around and thinking about just all the people who are lost here. And he turns to Virgil and he says, so does anyone ever make it out of here? Virgil tells him that one time, just once, someone very powerful came down and took a bunch of people back up into heaven. These people included Adam, Abel, Noah, Moses, Abraham, Israel, Rachel, and just a bunch of others that he had chosen beforehand. So these are basically all the people who did trust and believe in God, but they were born before Christ, so they were consigned to limbo until, presumably, this is a story of Christ dying on the cross, coming into hell, taking the people from limbo and bringing them back up to heaven. But Virgil says, other than that one time, no one ever leaves limbo. Dante sees off in the distance a faint light, and he can tell that there are people there, and he can kind of sense that there's some small level of joy over there. And he asks, what's that about? Why are those people over there happy for some reason? Virgil says that the people who are over in that small area of limbo were good enough in life that God grants them a small amount of comfort, even in hell. Someone calls out to Virgil, and he looks over, and there's a group of 4 people walking over to them. Virgil points them out, and he says, those 4 people there, that's Homer, Horace, Ovid, and Lucan. These are famous poets from the past. Apparently they hang out with Virgil, they talk. They come over and Dante and Virgil join their group, and the 6 of them talk for actually quite a while. Dante skips over it and says, I won't write down everything we talked about. But eventually they reach the place with the light, and they see that there is some amount of light here. There's a little bit of architecture, there's a river flowing through it, there's a bunch of people talking with one another. He sees a bunch of people here that you recognize from history, including a bunch of leaders, a bunch of poets. There's like a whole group of philosophers with Aristotle in like the center. They're all kind of crowding around him, and they see them all, they talk a little bit, but eventually they do have to move on. So Virgil leads him out, and the 2 of them walk further into hell, and that is the end of the 4th canto.
Interesting.